Hi everyone, welcome back to the Casual Watch Review channel. I'm still suffering a bit with my cold sore, so I've decided to do a lot more hands-on for this review. If you remember from my last review, I had to keep splicing in a lot of footage to cover up my face. This week we're looking at a great slice of late 90s nostalgia, the new Huckberry Timex Ironman Flicks edition. This is a reissue of a watch that was released around 1999, very kindly was lent this by a viewer so I could borrow it for the review, and I was very glad to get my hands on this one because not this particular version, but the Timex Ironman was my first watch as well, so I wanted to see whether it still captured that nostalgia and that late 90s sports watch aesthetic. So let's flip the camera around, we'll do the review, and then let me know in the comment section down below what you think. So here it is. This is the Timex Flicks edition in conjunction with Huckberry. Why was it limited edition? Well, I'm sure we can joke about the fact that it's made from a very rare material called injection molded plastic, or the fact that Timex is a small boutique watch brand that can only make a certain amount of watches a year, but in reality, I'm guessing it was they just didn't know probably how it was going to sell, so they didn't want to order a lot. They haven't put any of the Huckberry branding on the watch itself. We can see it clearly on the box here, but there isn't on the strap or on the back. Apparently they used the original moldings from the original Flicks edition, which I believe was released in 1999, and I'm doing some research online. It looks like that original model was only $34 or $35. This one's coming in at $100, which, to be honest, I thought was a little steep before I got my hands on this. I found some on eBay that are going for more than $100, the original ones, because not only is this watch iconic as a sports watch, but it was also made famous, or is famous, because of Jocko Willink, who is a very famous Navy SEAL, and since then he's famous for his coaching on leadership and discipline. He has his own podcast. It very famously was on Joe Rogan, and he did an extremely popular, with I think over 7 million views on YouTube, a TED Talk, which is a must to check out. He made this watch famous because this is his daily wear watch, although he wears it on a Velcro strap, but also because as part of his motivation, he posts this watch regularly on Instagram showing the time that he gets up in the morning, which is usually around 4:30, so trying to motivate people to get up early and start getting on it. So that's why this watch certainly recently has become very famous, because of Jocko Willink. So you'll see that even those original ones are quite valuable. And I wonder, with the success of this version from Huckberry, whether they might do a collaboration with Jocko on another version. That would be pretty cool. This has all the features of the original one, except this one has a 100-lap memory as opposed to a 30-lap memory I believe the original one had. At the time, Timex were quite revolutionary with these Ironman watches. They even had one that you've seen me review on the channel that was one of the few watches that was approved by NASA. A data link Ironman version regularly went into space, and that was a very early version of a smartwatch that had a really interesting way of transmitting data to the watch using an application that only works on old CRT monitors to transmit the data to the watch, sort of phone numbers and memos and stuff like that. It just harkens back to a time where these watches really were everything you needed for doing triathlons, in a time pre-smartwatch, which I guess wasn't really that long ago, but this Ironman was certainly well known for that. The features we've got here, we have the chronograph, a timer, and it has 5 alarms. It has these quick access buttons as well for starting and stopping the chronograph. I just recently reviewed the new Smart G-Shock, which is on this side. Even though this screen does have some additional smart features, there's still a lot of functionality with this one. Primarily, the buttons are a lot easier to use on the Timex with the start and stop at the front, whereas on the G-Shock here, they're the traditional G-Shock buttons where you've got to dig your finger in a little bit. And I like the fact that Huckberry, they were perfectly open about this, tried to go back to a simpler time with these watches, even though at the time this watch was quite advanced for what it was. They've lovingly recreated it almost a one-to-one using the original molds. The original band is very similar as well. This is quite a high quality, nice resin band. We've got the ridges on here as well, I presume to reduce heat or also stop it rolling around on your wrist. It's a very wearable size here. You can see it on my 7.2 inch wrist. But let's look at those measurements. The measurements are going to be a little bit deceptive on here because the case is going to seem bigger. So let's have a look at the case from there. We've got 45.2. and then a lug-to-lug of 49.3. But because it's so light and because it's only 12 millimeters thick, it wears very well. Certainly on my 7.2 inch wrist, and you'd probably get it away with it on a smaller wrist as well. The light lighting up that massive display, which is much bigger than the equivalent G-Shock, I would say. Certainly the DW5600 G-Shocks, this screen is a lot bigger than those. If you hold it down, the light stays on, whereas a G-Shock, it would just quickly switch off. Whereas this, you've got a couple of seconds to really see the time. So if you are running at night, very legible. Also with a battery life of, I'm guessing, at least 2 years. You don't have to worry about charging this one like you do a smartwatch. I went into this review a bit skeptical, thinking, would this watch live up to those watches that I remembered from my youth? And this one certainly does. They have done a good job of this, to be perfectly honest. The printing could be a little bit better at the top. Casio have picked them to the post there with how crisp their printing usually is on their screens. The crystal on here is acrylic. It will scratch. There's even a little scratch on this one already. So that's not a scratch that I put in there. That was a scratch that was already on the case. So it will scratch up a little bit. And people did complain about, or people did view these as being quite fragile. But if you look at that one that Jocko Willink wears, that has certainly taken an absolute beating and still looks to be performing quite well. And there's a few on eBay that appear to have quite a beating. I think they would be quite hard to restore. So if you do find one on eBay, I'm not sure how you would restore it back to looking like this. So this might be your only opportunity if you can pick one of these up to get one that works functionally and looks the same as those original ones, but is pristine and brand new. I was going into this review a little bit jaded about the price as well, but having seen it, the box, the packaging and everything, I think the $100, probably adjusting for inflation, isn't far off what they were in 1999. I certainly think it is worth around that, and they have gone up on eBay quite a bit. There's some even on eBay for $200. So a big thanks to my anonymous benefactor who loaned me this watch in. I will send this back out in the post to you. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Is this a bit of late 90s nostalgia for you like it is for me, but also in a very wearable watch? Let me know in the comment section. I'll see you next time on Casual Watch Reviews.